So let there be no doubt, the future belongs to the nation that best educates its citizens and my fellow Americans. We have everything we need to be that nation. We have the best universities, the most renowned scholars. We have innovative principals and passionate teachers and gifted students. And we have parents whose only priority is their child's education. We have a legacy of excellence, and an unwavering belief that our children should climb higher than we did. And yet, despite resources that are unmatched anywhere in the world, we've let our grades slip. Our schools crumble, our teacher quality falls short, and other nations outpace us. Let me give you a few statistics. In 8th grade math, we've fallen to 9th place. Singapore's middle schoolers outperform ours 3-1. Just a third of our 13 and 14-year-olds can read as well as they should. And year after year, a stubborn gap persists between how well white students are doing compared to their African American and Latino classmates. The relative decline of American education is untenable for our economy, it's unsustainable for our democracy. It's unacceptable for our children and we can't afford to let it continue. What's at stake is nothing less than the American dream. It's what drew my father and so many of your fathers and mothers to our shores in pursuit of an education. It's what led Linda Brown and Gonzalo and Felicitas Mendez to bear the standard of all who were attending separate and unequal schools. It's what has led generations of Americans to take on that extra job. To sacrifice the small pleasures, to scrimp and save wherever they can, in hopes of putting away enough. Just enough, to give their child the education that they never had. It's that most American of ideas, that with the right education, a child of any race, any faith, any station, can overcome whatever barriers stand in their way and fulfill their God-given potential. Of course, we've heard all this year after year after year after year, and far too little has changed. Certainly it hasn't changed in too many overcrowded Latino schools. It hasn't changed in too many inner-city schools that are seeing dropout rates of over 50%. It's not changing not because we're lacking sound ideas or sensible plans in pockets of excellence across this country. We're seeing what children from all walks of life can and will achieve when we set high standards. Have high expectations, when we do a good job of preparing them. Instead, it's because politics and ideology have too often trumped our progress that we're in the situation that we're in. For decades, Washington has been trapped in the same stale debates. That have paralyzed progress and perpetuated our educational decline. Too many supporters of my party have resisted the idea of rewarding excellence in teaching with extra pay. Even though we know it can make a difference in the classroom. Too many in the Republican Party have opposed new investments in early education. Despite compelling evidence of its importance. So what we get here in Washington is the same old debate about it's more money versus more reform. Vouchers versus the status quo. There's been partisanship and petty bickering, but little recognition that we need to move. Beyond the worn fights of the 20th century if we're going to succeed in the 21st century. I think you'd all agree that the time for finger-pointing is over. The time for holding ourselves accountable is here. What's required is not simply new investments, but new reforms. It's time to expect more from our students. It's time to start rewarding good teachers, stop making excuses for bad ones. It's time to demand results from government at every level. It's time to prepare every child, everywhere in America, to outcompete any worker, anywhere in the world. It's time to give all Americans a complete and competitive. Education from the cradle up through a career. We've accepted failure for far too long. Enough is enough. America's entire education. System must once more be the envy of the world, and that's exactly what we intend to do. That's exactly what the budget I'm submitting to Congress has begun to achieve. Now, at a time when we've inherited $1 trillion deficit, we will start by doing a little housekeeping. Going through our books, cutting wasteful education programs. My outstanding Secretary of Education. Arn Duncan, who's here today. Stand up, Arn, so everybody can see you. I'm assuming you also saw my Secretary of Labor, Hilda Solis. But Secretary Duncan will use only one test when deciding what ideas to support with your precious tax dollars. It's not whether an idea is liberal or conservative, but whether it works. And this will help free up resources for the first pillar of reforming our schools, investing in early childhood initiatives. This isn't just about keeping an eye on our children, it's about educating them. Studies show that children in early childhood education programs are more likely to score higher in reading and math. More likely to graduate from high school and attend college. More likely to hold a job, and more likely to earn more in that job. For every dollar we invest in these programs, we get nearly $10 back in reduced welfare rolls, fewer healthcare costs, and less crime. That's why the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act that I signed into law invests $5 billion. In growing early Head Start and Head Start, expanding access to quality child care for $150,000 more children from working families, and doing more for children with special needs. And that's why we are going to offer 55,000 first-time parents regular visits from trained nurses to help make sure their children are healthy and prepare them for school and for life. Even as we invest in early childhood education. Let's raise the bar for early learning programs that are falling short. Now, today, some children are enrolled in excellent programs. Some children are enrolled in mediocre programs. And some are wasting away their most formative years in bad programs. That includes the one-fourth of all children who are Hispanic, and who will drive America's workforce of tomorrow. But who are less likely to have been enrolled in an early childhood education program than anyone else. That's why I'm issuing a challenge to our states. Develop a cutting-edge plan to raise the quality of your early learning programs. Show us how you'll work to ensure that children are better prepared for success by the time they enter kindergarten. If you do, we will support you with an early learning challenge grant that I call on Congress to enact. That's how we will reward quality and incentivize excellence. And make a down payment on the success of the next generation. So that's the first pillar of our education reform agenda. The second, we will end what has become a race to the bottom in our schools and instead spur a race to the top by encouraging better standards and assessments. Now, this is an area where we are being outpaced by other nations. It's not that their kids are any smarter than ours, it's that they are being smarter about how to educate their children. They're spending less time teaching things that don't matter, and more time teaching things that do. They're preparing their students not only for high school or college, but for a career. We are not. Our curriculum for 8th graders is 2 full years behind top performing countries. That's a prescription for economic decline. And I refuse to accept that America's children cannot rise to this challenge. They can, and they must, and they will meet higher standards in our time. So let's challenge our states to adopt world-class standards that will bring our curriculums to the 21st century. Today's system of 50 different sets of benchmarks for academic success means 4th grade readers in Mississippi are scoring nearly 70 points lower than students in Wyoming, and they're getting the same grade. Eight of our states are setting their standards so low that their students may end up on par with roughly the bottom 40% of the world. That's inexcusable. That's why I'm calling on states that are setting their standards far below where they ought to be to stop lowballing expectations for our kids. The solution to low test scores is not lowering standards, it's tougher, clearer standards. Standards like those in Massachusetts, where 8th graders are. We have a Massachusetts contingent here. In Massachusetts, 8th graders are now tying for first in the whole world in science. Other forward-thinking states are moving in the same direction by coming together as part of a consortium. And more states need to do the same. And I'm calling on our nation's governors and state education chiefs to develop standards and assessments that don't simply measure whether students can fill in a bubble on a test. But whether they possess 21st century skills like problem solving and critical thinking and entrepreneurship and creativity. That is what we'll help them do later this year, that what we're going to help them do later. This year, when we finally make No Child Left Behind live up to its name by ensuring not only that teachers and principals get the funding that they need, but that the money is tied to results. and Arne Duncan will also back up this commitment to hire. Standards with a fund to invest in innovation in our school districts.